Kamen Rider ReVice is the third Reiwa-era Kamen Rider series, and the series celebrating 50 years of Kamen Rider. One of the initial concepts pitched for this series was that all of the past Kamen Rider shows were a TV show in ReVice, but that quickly got ditched, though this concept is still seen with the scientist character George fanboying about Kamen Riders throughout the series. Then there's the concept of a 2-in-1 Kamen Rider for this show, which dates back to the first Kamen Rider show in 1971, where at a certain point in the show, both Ichigo and Nigo teamed up to fight evildoers as a duo week to week. The Showa influence doesn't stop there, as Kamen Rider Vice's design looks very Showa-esque, having a scarf and being much more simpler than Kamen Rider ReVice's design, which leads into the future of Rider with a more sleek and shiny look. It's a pretty cool way to celebrate 50 years of Kamen Rider while doing something new and cool with the designs. As for the series, the narrative revolves around the Igarashi family of Kamen Riders as they learn to deal with their inner devils and fight the resurgence of a powerful devil known as Giff. And our main protagonists to combat this threat are Iki and his devil buddy Vice, aka Kamen Riders ReVice and Vice. ReVice, and they're solid protagonists. I usually like Vice's character archetype of eccentric mascot character, but he took some time to vibe with, especially given that his voice actor was a racist jerk, but he quickly became a really fun dude who could bring actual pathos to scenes. Still, screw his voice actor. And Iki's a charming guy who can bring heroic speeches a Kamen Rider is known for, but still has his own doubts and turmoil to overcome, which physically manifest in Vice. This duo has great development at first, with the two conflicting with each other, with Vice being a mischievous scamp and Iki being a responsible older brother keeping him in check, before they grow to understand each other and become a powerful duo. However, around episode 25, the duo's arc starts to stagnate as other characters take the spotlight, which is seemingly fine since they have entertaining moments, but it leads to the final episodes rushing through their final developments, like Iki's memory loss that could have been built up better in the background before the finale. Iki and Vice are still good, and I like where the show ends them on, but they could have been a bit more focused on leading up to the final episodes, especially the memory loss thing, which felt like an afterthought. Then we get to our secondary of the season, Daiji and Kagero, aka Kamen Riders Live and Evil. Secondary riders have often been fan favorite characters for modern Kamen Rider shows, with Vulcan and Blades from 01 and Saber respectively being seen as the best parts of their show, and I sadly can't say the same for ReVice. Daiji has a great start, as his demon Kagero is a joy to watch as a rivaling antagonist to Iki and Vice, but after Daiji becomes Live, things start to go downhill for his character, though not immediately, as there's still some great little moments afterwards, like of Kagero coming back a few times to pull Daiji out of a sticky situation. I am not kidding when the scene where Kagero defends his sister with his belt and talks about eating her curry is the peak of his character. But then Live gets the Holy Live upgrade, which has a fight between Live and Evil that feels so hollow. Some say it's because it only had one episode to focus on this new development, but I disagree, because I think the main problem is that there wasn't a strong message to go with this Live versus Evil fight. It just felt like fighting for the sake of fighting because a new toy is coming out. Now, the show kinda course-corrected from this idea, retroactively saying that purging Kagero was a bad idea and Daiji should work with his demons to become stronger, which makes for a cool whole picture, but a frustrating plotline to watch week to week. However, we have a fan-favorite character to talk about now, Sakura, aka Kamen Rider Janine, who is probably the best part of the show and the most innovative aspect ReVice brings to the whole Kamen Rider franchise. The head writer for Kamen Rider ReVice, Hanata Kinoshita, has gone on record saying that he wanted a female Kamen Rider in the main spot for this show, and while that didn't end up happening, Sakura is a big step up for female Kamen Riders. While her first attempt at a transformation failed, it's only when she confronted her weakness, which manifested in the remarkably cute demon Lovekov, that did she transform. I like to think of this plot point as a mini commentary on how Toei executives think female Kamen Riders won't sell, but Sakura overcoming the perceptions to prove them wrong. Even after her debut, she is still very active in the plot via her rivalry with Agalia, which leads them to forming a relationship that totally doesn't have any gay subtext at all, learning about the creator of her belt, and conflicting with Daiji when he goes rogue, so she's always being challenged and in the spotlight in some way. Probably the only complaint I have of her is that her belt is locked behind Premium Bandai, but most of the ReVice writers have their belts locked behind Premium Bandai, which is really annoying and scummy, by the way. Speaking of Agalia, her becoming a Kamen Rider later on is cool and all, but honestly, besides having some cute moments with Sakura, she doesn't have much of an arc after this, which makes sense, as becoming a Kamen Rider is kind of the cap-off to her atoning for her sins as a servant of Giff. The Special Girls remix does provide a lot more insight into her character, but that's not in the show proper, so not everyone will experience it unless they go out of their way to, which is a problem that's multiplied a million times with Genta Igarashi, aka Kamen Rider Veil and later Deathstream. You see, Genta's backstory is all told within the Veil special, which is a great series of episodes and some of the best material ReVice has to offer, but that's not in the main show, that's a side series connected to the main show, and that frustrates me so much. The episodes in ReVice where Genta has to deal with his inner demon known as Veil may not have much of an impact without his special in context. It's really frustrating, especially when the Veil special aired around the time they devoted 2 episodes to ego-stroking Vice's racist voice actor. It would have been so much better if the Veil special was a mini backstory arc instead of these episodes, which are possibly the most insulting episodes in Kamen Rider history. Ugh. I unfortunately have to say that the Veil special is basically required viewing for ReVice if you ever so choose to watch it, because without the Veil special, the amazing final battle between Genta and his demon feels flat, as opposed to the hype moment it is when you actually know the context. I keep saying this, but side content should not be an essential part to the show, it should be a fun bonus to the show. Please do better about this, Toei. Hiromi, aka Kamen Rider Demons, is a chill guy. Despite not getting any focus until his trilogy of episodes, he gets all this neat bits of characterization and progress in the background of certain episodes about his beliefs and fears, which leads up to his trilogy of episodes, which are super good, up until his anticlimactic death. And yeah, he wasn't dead, he came back later, but the way we learn about why he's not dead just comes out of nowhere. Hell, we don't even see his face in the episode where he's confirmed alive and kicking. Despite that stumbling, I love Hiromi a lot, as he's a legitimately good friend who does his best to help out his buds. He's a bit dorky, but very well-meaning and charming. I've seen some people say Hiromi is a modern evolution of a Showa-era protagonist with how simple yet effective of a character he is, which I can totally see, especially with the classic spider theming on the demon suit. Hikaru, aka Kamen Rider Over Demons, might be the most whatever character in Kamen Rider history. He doesn't have much screen time, and even when he does, he's not very charming with it. In fact, he comes across as a creep at times, and his debut as Over Demons is just not that exciting. It doesn't help that there was a perfect candidate of Over Demons elsewhere. Julio, later called Tamaki, the first servant of Gift to be defeated, and unlike Hikaru, he's very endearing and helps Agelia out with her development, so why not give the belt to him? There is an attempt to flesh out Hikaru after he becomes Over Demons, with members of his found family at the weekend dying off, but it comes across more as shock value than development, and the character himself doesn't grow more endearing with it. Hikaru doesn't add much in terms of entertainment value or the story's themes. He's just here to sell more premium Bandai shit. Worst part about this whole situation? They eventually let Tamaki transform into Over Demons, but only for like half an episode. I mean, cool, but it shouldn't have happened much sooner than it did, and Tamaki should have done more cool stuff as Over Demons to make it feel more justified. Then we have my personal favorite character in ReVice, George, aka Kamen Rider Juga. George is the creator of most of the belts in ReVice, and he's a very charismatic character, often providing the funniest bits in the show, though he does have violent tendencies at times, which leads into his transformation as Kamen Rider Juga. George has a complicated relationship with his dad, as they have fundamental disagreements about how to handle the conflict with Gift, and that wedge between them would grow even farther as it's revealed that George has his dad's demon in him, which is a conflict for the movie Battle Familia to handle, but you get the gist of the important details in the main episodes, so this isn't as annoying as the Veil special situation. After his dad died, George became Kamen Rider Juga as a form of self-indulgence in the midst of his grief. He immerses himself as this hero who will become the one true Kamen Rider and a savior of peace, which leads him to attacking the other riders. Remember earlier when I mentioned that George was a huge Kamen Rider fanboy? There's an argument to be made with this arc about how George's transformation into Juga could be seen as a commentary about how some viewers of media will look at the aesthetics and basics of their favorite shows and make it their entire personality, with some using it as escapism. Now, not all escapism is bad, but it can get out of hand if not filtered right, and George's situation is clearly one of using escapism poorly. He doesn't indulge in being a Kamen Rider to process his problems or learn a lesson, but to lash out and avoid dealing with the hard truths and complicated feelings he has about his dad. When Iki and Vice stop his rampage, George just breaks down. He can't forgive his dad for what he's done or the pain he's given him, but at the same time, they had good memories together, and he does care for him. But it's just, emotions! I always liked George for his entertaining charisma, but this arc that uses him being a Kamen Rider fanboy to enhance the messages of dealing with grief cemented him as my favorite character in the show. Overall, I think I like Kamen Rider ReVice, but man, it's got major issues. Outside of Aletta's devious charms, the villains were really boring, which is why I barely mentioned them. The human plus demon buddy concepts could have been more consistent between characters because every human and demon duo basically worked on their own rules separate from one another. The pacing started to drag around the 30s and 40s, and some of the action scenes felt like they were on autopilot. In fact, I found there was a bit too many anticlimactic finishes at important moments in the story, especially in the finale episodes. While these problems problems have made ReVice possibly my least favorite writer show. Jury's still out on that one. There's still a lot of great moments and characters in this show, like Hiromi, George, and of course Sakura and Nagelia, who are a big step up for female Kamen Riders, which are something the franchise has struggled with for decades. I hope Hanata Kinoshita comes back to write Kamen Rider again eventually, especially if he can write a main female Kamen Rider like he wanted to, because the dude's got talent for some great stuff, and I'd love to see him learn from his experience on ReVice to produce a better show for all of us later. Especially if there's less executive meddling involved, which I can pinpoint a lot of ReVice's problems to. Either way, ReVice is a fine show, check it out if you're interested, do all the YouTube things you know how to do, and I'll see you later.